Mr Chair, this sort of stuff is pretty important, and Mr Bishop always has a go at me whenever I say this, but this whole thing plays into our global brand of clean, green, 100% pure, and we need to get this right, Mr Chair. And the reason why this is so important is because it is our unique selling point. It's what we take to the world. It's what allows us to get a premium for a lot of our products. But that is why we have to be seen by the world in which we go forth into to be getting this right. If it's seen as dictating or not or prescribing in a way that's not utilising expertise that we have outside of government agencies, then it just will not be taken seriously. And that's the real concern I have around this. And it shouldn't be hard to get this right, Mr Chair. There are a couple of points I would like to pick up on that some of the other speakers mentioned. One of the opposition speakers said he feels that the spirit of the Act means that the government statistician and the Commissioner for the Environment, Secretary for the Environment, can go out there and utilise outside expertise. But the bottom line is, if it does not state that in the Act, then there is absolutely no mandate to go and do that. And so instead of saying, yes, well, this is all very well, they can do that because this is what we think the Act allows them to do, unless it is stated, then it won't be done. And I pick up a point that Mr O'Rourke made, and that is about consultation. There are a number of cases, Mr Chair, and there's one I'm dealing with in my electorate at the moment, where the need to consult is seen as a box-ticking exercise. So what happens is there's a whole lot of requirements that have to be achieved before anything can happen, and they say, OK, we must consult with so on and so forth. They go out, they set up a meeting, you get a few stakeholders come in, and they tick that box and say, that is our consultation, let's move on to the next thing. And whilst I don't mean to cast aspersions towards the government statistician or the Secretary of the Environment, and I'm not in any way suggesting that they will be devious or they'll be negligent in the way they do this. But all I am saying, Mr Chair, is the guidelines, in my view, don't provide a strong enough incentive or a robust enough mandate to use the sort of expertise we have out in our community. And let's face facts, there are a whole lot of very, very well educated and highly engaged people that are doing some superb work in our environment and have a whole lot to offer. Now, they may be included in this process. They may be, but there is no requirement to include them. And I suppose that's where I get a little bit concerned. If I look at clause 13, it says, and I quote, in producing and publishing an environmental report, the Secretary and the government statistician must utilise the expertise of the Ministry and Statistics New Zealand. It would have been quite easy to say, and key stakeholders. Even if they listed key stakeholders in an appendix to the Act, then it could have been done in a way that brought a whole lot of other people that are passionate about this as we are into the Act itself. The other thing as well, 13.3, I just don't think this is fantastic drafting. It says, in deciding under subsection 2 what statistics will be used to measure topics, the government statistician must, so there is a legislative requirement, follow what he or she believes, so that's a subjective term, to be best practice and principles, and be satisfied, which is again subjective, that the statistics accurately represent the topic they purport to measure. So you've got some subjective measures with objective requirements there, and I just think, again, that just leaves things open to interpretation, and it's very hard to argue from a legislative perspective that someone has got this right or wrong. If it had been more prescriptive, then in fact it would be a lot harder to argue that either the Secretary or the Chief Statistician had done a role that was outside their mandate. And again, clause 15, reports to be fair and accurate. And I quote, the Secretary and Government Statistician must, insofar as is reasonably practical, ensure that all environmental reports are published give a fair and accurate representation. Now, what happens when we have terms as is reasonably practical? Again, it is very open to interpretation. So what we may get is the government statistician and the Secretary of the Environment saying this is as much as we can do within the time frame we've got. You're going to get others who are as engaged in this, if not more so engaged, saying, no, you haven't undertaken what we believe is a reasonably practical process in arriving at your end result. Published, and I quote again, reports published to give a fair and accurate representation. I mean, again, who is going to be the chief arbiter of what is fair and what is accurate, especially in an area, again, like I say, where there are a whole lot of people doing academic research and real-life research. I just think there could have been an ability to provide a lot more information on this.
If
Mr.
you
Chair,
want, just
I was waiting for someone else to say.
if you want to take a call,
Sorry,
you must ask for the call at the time. Ruth Dyson went for the call. Honourable Ruth Dyson.